Hey, and welcome to episode 51 of Think Like a Hacker, where we chat about WordPress security and innovation. We've got a great episode for you today. We're chatting about a WordPress security release that's coming out. We've got the kerfuffle around Meetup.com since their owners, WeWork, have been having a very bad year. And we've got a little news about a party that we're throwing, which is kind of exciting. And then there's a new version of PHP 7.4 coming out, so we'll dive into that. Get ready for a great show. All right, let's dive straight in. Kathy, how's it going over there?
Going great. How's it going with you?
It's good. It's good. You're in Phoenix right now?
In Phoenix.
All right, back in Phoenix after your rather extensive travels. How many WordCamps do you think you've been to this year?
How about if I tell you how many I have left? I have 2 left. I have been to far too many to count. That would take too long. But 2 is a number I can count. So yeah, WordCamp US and WordCamp Seattle are the last ones on the roster for 2019. But 2020 is already starting to pop, and there's a few WordCamps coming out that look pretty interesting.
Yeah, awesome. And so WordCamp US is in 2 weeks in St. Louis, and we have all kinds of exciting things happening there, but we'll go a little deeper on that in a minute. But yeah, first off, so WeWork, huh?
WeWork. I haven't been paying attention to all of this. I mean, I knew that they owned Meetup and that, that could kind of affect like WordPress meetups, but you've been paying attention to what's happening with WeWork, right?
Yeah, well, I caught the edge of the wave as it started to hit, and then kind of hit mainstream
Gotcha.
news. But the guy who broke the story was Professor Scott Galloway, who he wrote when the S1 filing came out for WeWork, and I'm sure you guys will know about this. So we're kind of gonna get to the newer news here, but just to kind of give you some background on where this all started, Scott Galloway posted an epic. There's a better term than a blog post for this. It was like a gunfight. He posted something resembling a gunfight where he basically looked at the S1 and completely called bullshit on what WeWork were doing, and in particular Adam. And I suspect that a lot of folks have learned about what's going on with WeWork from the news, kind of the more mainstream outlets, but Scott's blog post is the original source. This is where it all started, and it hit Hacker News, and a lot of people piled on there in the comments. I say piled on, it was a very civilized conversation, but I think that's what kind of raised the profile of Scott's thoughts, and then a lot of people kind of piled in, and on Twitter and mainstream media. I think Business Insider and a few other publications kind of latched onto the story and ran with it. But it was going to come out either way because there's just so much in the S1 that was ridiculous. And so just to give you the TLDR on this, to use some Reddit terminology, they filed for S1, they filed for IPO, and the S1 came out, I think it was in August. At least that's when Scott's blog post came out, and the red flags were horrendous. Adam had sold 700 million in stock, Adam Neumann being the CEO. The gross margins of the company were horrendous. Adam had several family members who were making, in quotes, less than 200K working for the company. And so, nepotism is always kind of frowned upon by stockholders and boards, but he was doing that. The ownership structure was incredibly convoluted, and it was convoluted with a purpose. It was giving Adam a tremendous amount of control. And he was leasing his own buildings back to WeWork. They had paid him 5.9 million for the rights to use the word "we" in their trademark. On the business side, they had 49 billion in long-term obligations, money that they had to pay, and then they were going to do 3 billion in revenue. And as Scott pointed out in his blog post, and I think this was a little bit underreported in the media, that's a very precarious situation to be in if you're a business. You are obligated to pay that large amount of money, and those are sort of long-term leases, and your revenue source is all short-term. It can dry up overnight, and you're still locked into those long-term obligations. So it's a very, very risky position to be in, even if you ignore everything else. And then of course they were trading at something like 26 times revenue, and Amazon trades at 4 to 6 times revenue. And so for a very precarious business with the CEO essentially bleeding the company, trading at 26x revenue. His blog post was titled "We what the f***," and thanks to Max for bleeping that out in post. But I thought that was very aptly titled, and Scott broke the story, and then everyone else kind of riffed on this. So, but Scott's final paragraph. Actually, there's another quote from him that I thought was pretty epic. He says as he put it, they have no technology, no regulatory moats, no network effects, and no flywheel effect. And then his final paragraph is a real doozy. He says, the last round, 47 billion valuation, is an illusion. SoftBank invested at this valuation with a pref, meaning their money is the first money out, limiting the downside. The suckers, idiots, CNBC viewers, great Americans, and people trying to feel young again who buy on the first trade or after don't have this downside protection. Similar to the Dow Jones Industrial last round private valuations are harmful metrics that create the illusion of prosperity. The bankers, JPM and Goldman, stand to register 122 million in fees, flinging feces at retail investors visiting the unicorn zoo. Any equity analyst who endorses this stock above 10 billion valuation is lying, stupid, or both. Now, again, I know that this has been very much covered, but I really want to point out that Scott was the source for this, or the guy that made the most noise very early on. And so, it's kind of worth revisiting his blog post. And then he also did a We What the too, where he, kind of did an update on them, and he's been on Twitter as well. And, he's a business professor, a really smart guy, and a wicked sense of humor. And I think acerbic is maybe the term, but very entertaining. Now, Meetup is part of We since 2017, when they were acquired, and they've been around since 2002. And Meetup has been used by a ton of volunteer organizations, professional groups, and hobbyists over the years, as we all know, because I think we've all used Meetup, especially if you're part of the WordPress community. Right. And the cancellation of WeWork's IPO has been incredibly destructive to Meetup. And to WeWork. And WeWork, it looks like they're going to be laying off around 2,000 people this week. That's sort of the word on the street, and that's 13% of the workforce. I think that they're going to run out of money early next year based on their financials, and they have about 6 months of runway. And they have, as a investor friend of mine would describe it, the stench of death about them at this point. There is, they've got some big money that's already invested, so SoftBank and folks like that will do what they need to do, or what they can do to kind of prop up the company, or at least extract some value from the corpse. But I think it's going to be absolutely brutal, and I think that the 2,000 people that are going away this week, the 13% of the workforce is just the beginning. And it's just worth pointing out that these are all human beings that work for a startup, much like we all have, and it's not really worth engaging in Schadenfreude, watching them kind of go through hell. I think Scott actually on Twitter made some comments about the destruction of wealth that occurred there. I think the IPO was going to unlock something like over 40 billion of wealth for thousands of people, and those folks are now wondering whether they're going to have healthcare a few weeks from now. And so not a very good experience for them, but this is going to be very disruptive for the Meetup organization, and a lot of folks that are in WordPress have been on Twitter and various other forums that have and have kind of been commenting about this and reassuring folks where reassurance is warranted. Kathy, you've been keeping an eye on this, and I've actually been completely out of the loop on the Meetup side of things. So what's the story there?
Well, yesterday on October 14th, Meetup sent out a message to organizers stating that they were always looking for ways to improve the experience for everyone in the community. Quote, one of the options we are currently exploring is whether we reduce cost for organizers and introduce a small fee for members. Beginning in October, members of select groups will be charged a small fee to reserve their spot at events. The event fee can be paid by members, or organizers can cover the cost of events to make it free for members. So basically, if you want to go to a meetup that is not on the Meetup Pro plan, you would have to pay a fee, $2, to basically RSVP to an event, which is basically, I've been to a lot of meetups. I've watched how RSVPs happen. I've organized parties with RSVPs, and there are a lot of, yeah, sure, we'll come, RSVPs, and then people don't show up. That happens a lot. So some organizers are wondering, will this stop that mad rush to RSVP and then not show, put your money where your mouth is type of situation. But for organizers that want to continue to make their meetups free, they would have to cover that cost. So it, obviously increases the cost of having your meetup on meetup.com. Now, this is not going to affect WordPress.org because they're under the Meetup Pro plan. Andrea Middleton, who's kind of keeps an eye on all of this stuff and helps the community organize. There's like 600 meetups worldwide, I believe. She's been very active on Twitter, kind of dispelling rumors of how this is going to affect WordPress meetups. She said, this fee per RSVP won't affect WordPress meetup groups because they're part of the Meetup Pro plan, and Meetup Pro plan has applied to WordPress groups since 2015. So it's not going to affect WordPress. But it started people really talking about, and also we have to consider, if we're starting to see, the stench of death kind of hovering around WeWork, what does this mean to Meetup groups that are using that Meetup.com organizing tool? What's it going to mean? So there are calls for WordPress to get off of Meetup, and apparently these types of calls have been happening for years where people have wanted an alternative. Freed CodeCamp is actually going to start building an open source alternative to Meetup, and that looks pretty interesting. So people have been asking for this for years, according to Quincy Larson. And this Meetup pricing scheme is going to force their hand, so they're going to build that together. So it's looking like the WordPress community is going to have to find another method of organizing meetups worldwide, or something. Some things are going to have to change if WeWork is sort of out of the picture. How's that going to affect WordPress? What do you think, Mark?
Well, to be honest, I'd like to geek out about this for a minute on the business side of things. So I think when businesses are growing and cash flow is positive, or there's a lot of funding, it's very easy to have a calm mind and innovate because you've got a lot of resources, you don't have a lot of stress, you're winning hard, and oh my God, there was this great blog post that Mark Andreessen wrote years ago on his blog, and then I think he took down his blog and he might have put it up again. But he said it was talking about you don't have a hiring problem, you have a winning problem, and that's one of the things that gets weird when a company needs to tighten its belt, and I think that if I had to try to describe WeWork's thinking around Meetup when they acquired it, I think there was actually a very healthy symbiosis there because, one example of that might be, I think WeWork was providing free facilities for Meetup people, right, Kathy?
Yeah. So if you had a Meetup that was organized through Meetup.com, and you wanted to use a WeWork facility, you could do so, but they had some caveats that it was free to do so during business hours, but if it was going to be after hours, there was a fee that had to be associated. And I know that one of the meetups in the LA area was at a WeWork, and that was really difficult because during the day, everybody's got a full-time job and they're working, and so they want to go to their meetups after hours. And so it wasn't really free.
And so I think that the symbiosis for me with Meetup and WeWork would be get people to come to WeWork, experience the offices, do it for a one-off event, and that would create some familiarity with the space and inspire them to then lease office space in whatever form from WeWork. So it's a great way to bring in new customers. But I think what's happening now is this company's tightening its belt severely. And it's going to, what's going to happen is the analysts are going to come in and they're going to look at this as an asset and not necessarily as a a brand that has a relationship with customers and has meaning to those customers, and should evoke a certain feeling for those customers, they're going to look at it as an asset, and they're going to try to use their MBA foo to extract value from this asset. And the conversation around charging people to RSVP, I guarantee you it was exactly along those lines. It was, we've got a lot more people attending events than we have people organizing events. I wonder if we can make money out of them. Well, the obvious way to do it would be to charge them to RSVP, but what they don't realize is that organizing an event, sending out invites, and having people confirm those invites, it has zero cost, and it has zero cost for a single developer to create that application and make it available to the entire world at scale. I mean, it literally costs next to nothing, Yeah. And so what they're doing is they're putting up a barrier to the customers of their customer, which is the worst thing that you can possibly do, right? It's kind of like me. Let's say I had a shopping cart plugin, all right, and I'm selling that shopping cart plugin to people who run stores. And what I try to do is I try to charge their customers for using their website to buy something. It's the one thing that you don't want when you're organizing an event or selling or marketing anything, is that the product you're using that should be an enabler is in fact putting up barriers to serve their own selfish interests. I mean, it's absolute suicide. So this is for folks like us who are not in the thick of things at WeWork, it's probably fairly obvious, but when you've got WeWork rapidly running out of money, 6 months is nothing in business time, right? They're in panic mode, and so they're looking at every single thing that they can monetize, and even if it's extremely risky, and this is just one of those symptoms. And I guarantee you, the fake skateboard ramp in the London office is going to be taken out and replaced with desks and chairs, and they're going to try to lease that as extra space, which is probably a good thing, because I think that is so gross, to be honest.
Yeah, somebody who doesn't understand marketing was obviously looking at numbers, and I just to update, I just took a look at the number of WordPress meetups in 104 countries. There are 780 groups now, which is an update from the last time I looked, and there are 401,000 members of WordPress groups worldwide. So somebody sees those numbers and are like, well, if we just get half of them to spend $1, look what we can get out of this. And they're not thinking about how that really it kills the whole model. You can't do it this way. There has to be some kind of value that you're providing, and there's none when you're just extracting something out of and seeing members and seeing your customers members as a resource that needs to get tapped. You're right, it's a death knell.
Yeah, I actually think the worst thing about the whole WeWork debacle, the most destructive thing for the company, it's not even losing all those public investors. It's actually the damage to the brand, because WeWork relied very much on taking what is relatively ordinary office space and branding that as a cool place to be. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of cool factor around startups choosing office space, wanting to be hip, single entrepreneurs doing that, larger companies, they want everything about their company to be cool. They want the employees to feel like they're walking into a special office that is hip and kind of leading the trend, along with everything else that the company is doing, leading the trend. And WeWork's brand has been completely destroyed by Adam and this whole experience, and I think it was especially the sort of exfiltration of cash from the company by the founder has left everyone with a very kind of icky feeling that they were an enabler of that by being a customer of this company. And so the ability for WeWork to rent office space, hopefully at a competitive price, rebrand that as WeWork, which makes it cool, and add their fake skateboard ramps and so on, that's been shown to be extremely uncool. And I think that is the thing that will drive the final nail into the coffin is that the business, even if they pull themselves out of this financial mess, they've lost that brand cachet. It's like Chanel number 5, suddenly being rebranded as Channel number 5 with the, with the connotations that go with that.
Yeah. Well, you don't think that Adam's 60 million G650 jet is cool?
I certainly want to travel in a private jet at some point. I haven't had the pleasure yet, and but even that has left me with a sense of ick. I don't know that I want to travel in a private jet now because it's just associated with that whole mess. He's even ruined private jets, which I haven't even experienced yet.
It's ruining everything. Yeah, I mean, by upping his own personal brand and spending money like it's water.
Yeah,
he's really soiled the name of WeWork.
And you said something interesting to me earlier, which is that there's, we were just chatting offline, and that you're pointing out that there's this. Well, let's put it this way. You didn't put it this way, but I think your point was this is a really bad time to be, caught being extremely greedy as a CEO. With the kind of culture that we have right now. There's a bit of a backlash. I think I don't want to put your words in your mouth, Kathy, because you put this very differently and perhaps more subtly. But I feel like there's what you're saying is that there's a backlash against this kind of thing, against greed in general, right?
Well, I think there's a backlash against centralized greed. I mean, everybody's looking at, like Facebook and the Libra cryptocurrency, and, it's become the butt of jokes. There's a move. I mean, the internet, you were around at the start of the internet too, and it started with this idea of a free flow of ideas, distributed computing, where I own my website, I can publish whatever I want, and everything kind of creeped into this centralized social media where people are like, setting up groups on Facebook. I mean, that was one of the things people were concerned about talking about, is like, oh, well, everybody's going to start organizing meetups and groups on Facebook now. And it's like, well, that doesn't solve the problem, because then we just have another centralized beast that's managing community and managing connection with people. And so this promise of a distributed internet that we all, got stars in our eyes for years ago, it has changed, and now everything's very centralized. And I think people are coming back around to the decentralized model of wanting everyone to sort of own their own meetup or own their own content, and to maybe leverage these tools like Facebook and Meetup and things like that, but not beholden to them, so that the rug isn't ripped out from under them when Meetup has a problem or goes out of business. I can still run my Meetup. I still have my group. I still connect with people. I can still run my business. And so there's this backlash against these large companies that are sort of like controlling the conversations and controlling the way we connect with our fellow internet citizens. And that's the world citizenry as well, because more and more people are coming online. Yeah. And so people are wanting to move more towards decentralized. And I think that's, so they see the greed and everything, and that's just sort of a symptom of sort of this centralized computing system.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And you know what I think is happening as people are coming online? People have more access to information, they have more access to education, they have more access to very sophisticated points of view that you'd only get by going to a university and kind of hanging out in the ivory tower previously. But and so I think I love your phrase, centralized greed. Is that what you said?
I may have.
Yeah, I think that's what you said. I really like that.
Trademark.
Yeah. TM, Kathy. I really like that. And what I would love to see is people really begin to be more and more aware of how corporations will kind of like take something that is original, package it up and mass market it, and completely, in a lot of cases, in most cases probably, completely kind of ignore the source, don't give it credit, and productize this thing and then endorse athletes or get models to do an ad or whatever, and just try to infuse this brand or this product or this service with as much cool as they possibly can, and manipulate people into buying that. And then you've got the other side of it, which is where truly original ideas come from, whether it's software, books, art in various forms, screenplays, films, and so on. And I know people that create original things, and my sister is one of them. She's a chef in Cape Town who has this amazing restaurant, and they're constantly innovating. And she built a skate park in the back of a restaurant, and they had skateboarders that are just folks off the street that love skateboarding, and then artists and so on, having art exhibitions back there, and just really original things being created in this space. And it wasn't packaged up and productized and mass marketed or anything like that. And I think of also, when it comes to makers, Doc Popular on Twitter, who I've chatted to on camera and so on, and I hang with when the opportunity presents. He's into yo-yos actually, and if I'm not mistaken, they created a special kind of yo-yo at this place in Portland, and this was kind of a project that he was doing with some friends, and I hope that what we'll begin to see as this awareness increases is a kind of decentralization of the creation of things, and also where the makers benefit more. Wow, we went on a tangent there, hey?
Yeah, it's a good one though, because as more and more people come online and realizing that, the connections that can be made, I think that awareness is going to, sort of bring a resurgence, a renaissance online, perhaps. Of content generation.
It's one of the things I like about the WordPress community is that you have a lot of makers in the community, and it is so diverse, and I don't mean diverse in this sort of way that large corporations are embracing. I mean, it has everyone across the entire spectrum. The cool kids, the uncool kids, the people from all sorts of different backgrounds, and many of them are folks that are making things. In a lot of cases, it's software, plugins, themes, and so on, and they're using the kind of substrate that WordPress provides with the open source platform and the GPL to kind of build on that. And that's one of the things I love about the community. But yeah,
and we get to see all of them. We get to see all of them in just a couple of weeks at WordCamp US. Are you excited?
I am very excited, and I love how you've just segued into the next thing that we want to chat about, which I'm unbelievably excited about. And actually, you and Hillary and I guess Tim and some other folks have been really at the center of organizing this. But this is the party we're throwing on Saturday night, right?
Yeah, we have a lot going on at WordCamp US. The biggest thing, though, is that this movie about the WordPress community that we've been working on for, it's over a year now. It's ready for premiere, and it's going to premiere worldwide. We've talked about it on the podcast before, but I love talking about it, so let's talk about it again, because we're going to be celebrating that premiere at a party on November 2nd in St. Louis with many of our friends from around the globe. We have people coming in to WordCamp US from all over the world. And we are going to have an epic party. We're putting together music playlists. We're going to watch the film together as a group there, have some conversations about what, the purpose of the film, how the film came together. We'll have the filmmakers themselves there for a Q&A, and a very, very good time. And
so without sounding too pretentious, it's going to be a little bit of a red carpet event, but we're all WordPress folks, and we are unpretentious, and so you can wear whatever the heck you want to wear, and we'll have I think we've got limos dropping folks off, don't we?
Yeah, we do. St. Louis is kind of an interesting city, and so things are a little spread out, and we wanted to make it fun for everybody to get to the party. So we have limo rides that we're coordinating with everyone who RSVPs. Yep. And a red carpet. And I personally will be having fun with the red carpet. I know a lot of people who are going to go so glam, and so everybody's going to bring their own personality to that red carpet. It's going to be a really good time. Looking forward to seeing what happens there.
Yeah, I'm not the kind of guy that wears a suit, and I'm not super comfortable in it, but what I'm probably going to do is get some sort of jacket with a shirt and not a tie, and kind of rock that, and I need to figure that out. So, but anyway, all right. So, but yeah, Andrew and Sean will be there. Andrew Rodriguez and Sean Corbett, the filmmakers. They are amazing people, and both have they've obviously finished the film and they're working on interesting projects now themselves. Liat, who scored the film, will also be there, and she will be performing. She'll be doing a live performance with a friend of hers, and we're all set up for that. I think her friend's coming in from New Jersey, and Liat's based in Denver, which is where I am right now. You can probably see my neighbor's little ranch behind us here, but yeah, so Liat's coming in from Denver, and like Kathy said, we're going to do a Q&A with the filmmakers. We're going to have ever since we kind of got into open, and we started the project and then kind of dove in and started shooting it and so on, the film bug has bitten us pretty hard, and me in particular, and I've been very much inspired by Andrew and Sean, and we've been geeking out in a big way, and we're actually going down the film rabbit hole much further than open, and so we can chat about that a little bit during the Q&A at the party, but we'll have some other folks there that are in the industry with some very interesting gear, both kind of hanging around our booth and at the party and so on. And if you are a film geek in any shape or form, whether you do podcasts or you're shooting short films, or you just want to take better photos, because film and photography is very, very close, definitely come by and hang out, and hit me up if I'm at our booth or at the party, or hang out with Andrew and Sean, because we have a lot to talk about, and we've learned a lot, and we've made a lot of mistakes, and we've gotten a lot right, and the film actually turned out amazing, so I think you're going to really enjoy that. But yeah, we can maybe share some of our learnings with you if you come by and chat with us, or at the Q&A at the party. So that's going to be super exciting, and I'm actually so looking forward to seeing everyone who was involved in the film as well in one place, because it's such a great crew. So yeah, it's going to be cool, Kathy?
Yeah, it's going to be exceptionally fun. So if you have not received an invite and you are interested in coming, you can hit me up. My DMs on Twitter are open, or you can just email me, Kathy@Wordfence.com, and we'll make sure that you've got an invite, because we'd really love to see you there.
Yeah, and don't feel like you need, there's like a barrier to entry because it's like a red carpety type of event. I can tell you personally that I can't stand the whole nightclub velvet rope thing, that whole pretentious thing that tries to keep you in line outside and so on. Our numbers are limited, so if you do want to come, definitely hit Kathy up for an invite ASAP, and RSVP, please. But that we are handing out invites, so if you get one, you will be guaranteed to get in, and it's come as you are. My wife and co-founder Carrie and myself are the least pretentious people that you will meet. We're very, very chill. This is not about trying to create some artificial perception of reality. It's about hanging out with good friends and geeking out on film stuff. So come and join us, and have a drink, and meet the team and have some fun.
Definitely have some fun. That's what it's all about. I mean, the pretentious stuff, with the red carpet and everything, that's so that you can have fun with it.
Yeah.
It's not so that it's like, oh, well, this is like, so special or whatever. This is like, hey, you want to walk down a red carpet and act like a dork with me? Totally. I will personally walk down a red carpet with you and be the biggest dork in the world. So totally. It's all for fun.
Yeah. All right. So, this whole podcast was actually just going to be about the WordPress security release and then the PHP 7.4 release. And I got on the call with Kathy, and we were both like, that is just way too dry. So all the stuff that you've heard up until now is stuff that we added because we just wanted it to be a bit more We actually just wanted to talk about the stuff we wanted to talk about, which is what you've just heard. So now we're going to get down to business and talk about the WordPress security release. Kathy, how about I take this one and you do PHP 7.4?
Okay, sounds good. But we have to give mad props to Matt Rusnak for like tearing apart this release, because he is an amazing dynamo.
Okay, agreed. And actually, Matt today had his 4-year anniversary with the company, which is pretty wild. Actually, I don't know if I can break this news just yet, but we have quite a few family members that work for us now. And it looks like we're going to have one more kind of family joining the company. But we've got, okay, well, I tell you what, I'll break this down on Twitter tomorrow, the next day, once it's official. But watch my Twitter feed for some comments about this, because it's really interesting. Being in a company where we have so many family members that are working for us and work together, it is really cool, and I think I have a few thoughts about that, but I think I'm going to just let things become official for in the next 24 hours, and then I'll kind of share my thoughts on that. So, all right, but Matt Rusnak is in our QA team, and he's our spiritual QA leader, and absolutely brilliant at what he does, and is deeply interested in WordPress and the release cycle and the latest changes and so on. So Matt actually gave us the cheat codes for talking to you about the WordPress security release. So here they are, courtesy of Matt Rusnak. So all right, so to kind of break this down, what's in this release? So this is WordPress 5.2.4, which is a security release. It's a minor release, so your sites will be automatically updated. The first thing they did was remove the static property in WP Query that can allow unauthenticated queries for all post statuses. So it looks like that parameter, which can be included in a post body or maybe a GET request, allows viewing of some posts that aren't published. We don't expect mass attempts to exploit this. But sites that are known to have private content could be targeted. And so if you have a lot of private content, you really want to upgrade to 5.2.4 ASAP, because this could impact you. So they've locked that down. It looks like WP Tavern covered it as well, so we'll include that in the show notes. And the next thing they fixed was to add a very origin header to get requests to the REST API. And it looks like this was to fix a potential cache poisoning attack. It's kind of an edge case, and cache poisoning is very difficult to exploit, but that's one of the other fixes in there. And then there's a fix for remote code execution as an admin. And this is hardening, really. And it looks like the fix was to prevent path traversal in the WP mkdir_p function. Our WAF actually will block most potential cases here. Even if you haven't updated the Wordfence firewall, will block that based on the research that our QA team did. But they mentioned hardening, so they might have a specific attack in mind. So another reason to update there. And then they're also properly sanitizing background images in the customizer to avoid cross-site scripting or XSS and stored JavaScript. And this is actually a backport only, so the problem was resolved in WordPress 4.7, but they have backported this fix to older versions of WordPress. So if you're living on the edge and running an old version of WordPress and relying on backported security fixes, you want to make sure you get that backported fix. There's also a fix for server-side request forgery, or SSRF, in the WP HTTP validate URL. And this, let's see if I can parse Matt's thoughts here, but it's basically returns false from WP HTTP validate URL if the IP from getHost by name matches the host of the URL, instead of allowing further processing, such as excluding private IPs. This function is probably used too many places for us to put together a firewall rule, and so we really recommend that you update here. And there might also not be a useful way to actually exploit this in bulk. So it sounds like it's the impact is potentially widespread, but it's very hard or perhaps even not feasible to exploit. If we spot a way that this is exploitable, obviously we'll add a firewall rule for this. So yeah, not super glamorous, but another reason to update. And then there's a bypass hardening to check admin referrer, and this is also labeled hardening, and we think that this is to prevent plugins from using this function incorrectly. So yeah, that pretty much covers WordPress security release 5.2.4, and you'll get that updated automatically if you have not disabled updates. They're on by default. It's a minor version and a security update, so your site will update automatically, and that's the goodness that you have to look forward to there. And then Kathy, PHP 7.4 is coming out. Is it November 28th?
November 28th, yeah. Release candidate 3 has been released. There was a post by John DeRosiers on make.wordpress.org. John is a core developer that works for Bluehost, but he works on core, and it managed, the security update that went out yesterday. He was very involved in getting that out as well. Real great guy. Also an organizer up at WordCamp Boston. Really cool individual. So he wrote up a post basically going over some of the functions in PHP 7.4 that are related to WordPress, and we'll show, put a link to this. This would probably be most applicable to people who are developing themes or plugins for WordPress, to make sure that, any functions that you're using get updated and you're not using deprecated functions in PHP. So WordPress is ready for this. They have made some changes to some of these functions and parameters to make sure that WordPress is going to be compatible with 7.4. The current PHP standard is now 5.6.20 and higher, and they are watching usage numbers for WordPress users to show, making sure that impact is minimized, but it's looking like they're really looking to go into the PHP 7 area. Probably not 7.0, because I think that is end of life now, but the 7.1 perhaps, to make sure that everybody's starting to use more higher versions and more faster versions, more secure versions of PHP, and leave the 5 dot behind. So we're probably going to start seeing notices in site health coming out that are encouraging people to move into PHP 7. 7.4 is coming out, and WordPress is ready for it. So if you are developing plugins or themes, we'll have a link to the overall overview of all of the different changes that are coming, and make sure that you're ready for it. End of November, coming up soon.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much to the WordPress team that puts together the security releases. We really appreciate the work that you guys do, and of course the folks behind PHP, coming out with the releases there. We all build our stuff on the foundation that you create for us. So thanks a lot. If you're going to WordCamp US, especially if you're a customer of ours, I would love to see you. I'll be at our booth and kind of loitering around here and there. And come by our booth and say hi. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the direction that we're taking with our product, with Wordfence, and some of the real world problems that you have and how we can help to solve them, and just to kind of hang out. Also, if you haven't, I think as we mentioned, Kathy's got a few invites left for the party. So if you'd like to attend, if you're available on Saturday night, and you're coming to WordCamp US, definitely send her a DM. Her DMs are open. And Kathy, have I mentioned how much I appreciate the work that you do lately?
Oh, thank you.
So just so everyone knows, Kathy, you put together, all of the initial notes for our podcast, and you do the show notes as well, in addition to prepping for actually having this conversation, in addition to all the other things that you have going on, and essentially running marketing for our organization. So, I just wanted to give you a shout out, because I don't feel like I do that often enough.
You do. You take very good care of me. Thank you, and I appreciate it. And yeah, I too am really excited. We're going to have a huge booth at WordCamp US. If you go on the WordCamp US sponsors page, there's a picture of our booth from last year, which was kind of like this last minute thing. It's like, oh my gosh, such a tiny little table. We will have a huge booth, and we are going to have so much lock picking going on. Yeah. So if you've never been to a Wordfence sponsor booth or table at any WordCamp, this one's going to really be kicking it. And I think we're going to be planning some social posts. So even if people are at home and can't make it to WordCamp US, you can kind of follow along on the WordCamp or Wordfence Twitter account during WordCamp US, too many words in there, and kind of keep an eye on what we're up to. And it's going to totally make you wish that you were there. So
I think we should maybe do like a live broadcast on the Wordfence Twitter account, because we did that a while ago, and I think it worked out pretty well. So just like grab a mobile device, hang out in the booth, and then kind of like walk folks through what we're doing that are not able to be at US. If I'm looking above the camera, it's because there's a giant wasp that just flew in here.
Oh my God.
So I need to wrap this up. All right. So so if you're not going to be at WordCamp US, follow Wordfence on Twitter, and we'll have something for you. But that's it for this week's news and everything else that we chatted about. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a like and subscribe. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, give us a rating. Let us know how we're doing. And, you can always send us a private message at... where's a good email address for them to contact us, Kathy?
Email, you can send to feedback@wordfence.com. Tim monitors those. Or you can hit me at Kathy@Wordfence. I monitor that as well. So.
Nice. And then do we have an interview coming up later this week?
We do. We have an interview this week with Andrea Zollner from SiteGround. So
awesome.
That'll be fun.
All right. Okay, so that's it for this week. Have a spectacular rest of your week, everyone. Bye.